Neil McEwen says Hall and McGilvery shouldn't be anywhere near international squads. They were good about 5 years ago. I don't get the hype with Cooper. He's bang average prop. Is Wayne just picking his squad on size? This is a Radders type squad.
It's not that bad. And Tom Andrews says, clearly Sean Wayne doesn't think Abdul requires further training. He's in the peak of fitness, no doubt.
Shall we start with the wingers, seeing as Ryan Hall was the big name coming back in this time around compared to before? Are Hall and McGilvery still a force to be reckoned with at the international level when you take into account their performances at the club level still being very strong?
I see them both probably on the outside looking in terms of first choice, but I don't know if there's masses ahead of them in the pecking order, really. There's a lot of younger players who are kind of starting to establish themselves, but they wouldn't be my first pick. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily, shocked that they're kind of on the edge of the, what is ultimately a 30 player, squad that's just domestically based players, isn't it? So, your actual final, your final squad is going to, he's not going to include quite a number of these people.
I mean, Tommy Wakinson has one wing spot. That's a certainty without injury aside. And if you were looking at someone who plays wing week in, week out for the other spot, then I do question whether Hall and McGilvery are at the level they used to be at. Tom Johnston, I mean, John's questioned about Harry Newman having to get on the pitch. Well, he played more times than Tom Johnston did last year. But Johnston has started this season really well. You have to think it's a bit of a surprise that he's not in there. But if one of the categories was last season's form, and he had a couple of really amazing games last year, but missed a lot of games as well last year. Tom Johnston, Donald McIntosh missed even more games, I think, last year. I certainly think if we're talking about players that didn't play a lot last year, McIntosh didn't finish the season, did he? Whereas Johnston and certainly Harry Newman, who played the last 10 or 12 or so games for Leeds last year, did finish the year last year. So I'd say, I can understand. But there's the big winger down in Newcastle, isn't there, Dom Young, who will possibly, I mean, as a centre or a winger, but he's possibly going to be staking a claim, isn't he, for a World Cup spot as well. I would put most of them ahead of Liam Marshall, who's been named in this squad, though, if I'm being fair and honest, even though he does have a knack of scoring tries. Josh Charnley also has a knack of scoring tries, but he's not back in the squad.
I think probably maybe Tom Davies gets a shot, maybe.
Yes.
On the other side, probably.
If we're based on last year's form, Makinson and Davies are your two wingers, aren't they?
They'd be my first choice, yeah. But we're also well known for playing, slightly interesting choices at winger, aren't we? We can play,
Well, Hardaker's playing on the wing this season. Percival could play on the wing. Wellesby could play on the wing.
If you're looking for speed, you could have Newman on the wing. Do you know what I mean? There's all kinds of options. It wouldn't surprise me if he'd look at, picking a back five that's got a bit of flexibility in it rather than specifically just looking at, left, right wingers, etc.
Yeah. Now, Sam Tompkins, even when this squad was named, was listed as the captain. He was named the captain last year, wasn't he? Apart from when he didn't get to actually play. So he's England's captain, therefore he's certain to be the prime choice at full-back. So Jake Connor, despite his outstanding performance in this weekend's games after being banned from playing the week before, hey, isn't that a massive fucking clue as to why he's not in the squad, kids? It's what we said at the end of last year, and I think is it still the same with Connor, do you think?
If it was my team, I'd have Connor in the squad because I'd always have Connor in my 17. He'd probably be on my bench on the basis that he can fill so many different places, and also if you're struggling, he's likely to come on and change the game or do something a bit different, whether that be good, bad, or indifferent. He's never boring, is he? So, for me, he'd be my kind of my back kind of rotation player or kind of alternative on the bench. If you're running with 3 forwards, or if it depends if you run with an 80-minute hooker or whatever. But again, I wouldn't necessarily discount him, put him in at 9 for 10 minutes. Just if you're struggling, the guy's got incredible flexibility, even though he does have a screw loose. So for me, he'd be in my 17, but he'd probably start on the bench.
Well, I'd have him and Widdop both in my sort of training squad. But if your reasons for not having Connor were discipline and, lapses like that, then he's not done anything to help himself by getting a ban after week 1 of this year. I don't think any of this team's been picked on form this year, by the way, because Paul McShane and Reece Lynn wouldn't be in if it was based on what we've seen so far this year.
No.
I'm not super convinced that... Jake Wardle, it says Warrington. He plays for Warrington on this list off the BBC website, but he plays for Huddersfield, of course.
Oh yeah, I've just a proper Ron Bergen did that, but yeah.
Well, I've just copied and pasted the list off the BBC website. So then maybe they know something we don't know. I doubt they do. But yeah, I'm not certain that Liam Marshall or Zach Hardacre will be in my final World Cup reckoning either. Kai Pearce-Paul is an interesting one, and Lewis Dodd is an interesting one. They're the 2 most interesting new inclusions for me in this setup. Mikey Lewis could be thinking about wanting to be involved if Lewis Dodd is involved. I'm not sure he's that far behind Lewis Dodd, other than Lewis Dodd has played in finals, so that's a level up, isn't it? And that is why there's more St Helens, Wigan and Warrington players in this squad than any other coming from any other side. The other person that was mentioned in one of those comments was Mike Cooper. I can't see why Mike Cooper shouldn't be in this squad. He was, this is a Super League-based England training squad. He was the second best English prop forward in the country, I think, last year, behind... a mile behind Alex Walmsley, but still, I'd say next behind Alex Walmsley and Michalewski being quite close to him. So I'm not surprised with those choices, personally. So I think Matt Cooper's well worthy of his spot, but Sargentson and Lynn, people who pulled them out as question marks, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, Cooper is incredibly solid as a prop. I know, obviously everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but for me, Cooper's an absolute shoe-in for one of the prop positions for me.
You have to think that Abdul maybe didn't do enough in that time with the squad for that France game to impress Sean Wayne suitably, because otherwise there's no reason for him not to be in this squad. So I guess that's the thing you can draw out of that potentially. But there's no huge surprises that are in there. You can kind of pick a side and leave a few gaps already. So you'd have Sam Tompkins at your fullback. You'd have Makinson certainly as one of your wingers. I think other winger and centre spots are still to be decided, with a couple of options in Australia as well as no one properly nailing it down. I think Wellesby will probably be likely to play in one of the centres if I'm honest, because I think they're going to try and get him in the side. Then you look at the halves. I think it's Lomax and Williams are what Wayne wants to play in the halves, I think, as it stands. So we'll see if that develops at all. I don't know. Hooker, there's obviously, I think McShane's maybe Wayne's favourite at the moment, but I think Clark should be the front runner there. But there's also, of course, what's his name in Canberra? Hodgson,
yeah.
Who's another certainly viable option. Knowles is going to be your loose forward. I think it'd be nonsensical if it's not him. Best player in the Super League according to some, but certainly one of the best, I'd say. And you've got Walmsley, you've got Tom Burgess, who's going to be in. You would have to certainly expect, and Luke Thompson, who is certain to be in. So those three will make up 3 of your 4 props in your match day 17 if everyone's fit. And you've got to think Bateman and Farrell will be the second rowers, but you've also got Curry and Whitehead, going for that. But Bateman's nailed on for 1 of those, and then it's between 3 excellent players for your other one.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't argue with Bateman and Farrell as my starting second rower. Yeah.
Anyone that you think maybe we haven't covered that's either a surprise for you that's in the squad or a question mark about not being in the squad?
I don't think there's anybody that I'd kind of that people haven't picked up that's outside looking in. I understand why Lewis Dodd's in the 30. I get that. He's kind of, he's the hot new thing, isn't he? And he's playing very well. I'm not denigrating his performances. He's showing a lot of potential, but it's still to be realised fully. I can't really argue with it as a you can argue around the edges, but fundamentally it's a reasonable stab at a 30-man squad.
Yeah, and it's going to be it's 24-man squads, isn't it? They have at the World Cup, so you throw in 5 or 6 players from down under, and then you're already up to 35, 36.
There's probably 10 of this 30 is going to miss out, isn't there? Yeah, you would say, yeah.
I would expect so. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Well, I think surely people will have more to say about that. There might be some things who disagree with what we've pulled out there, or there might be some things that people are frustrated that we haven't covered. You know how to get in touch. We just told you before the music break, so do get in touch and tell us, and we'll cover any other views about that England training squad that anyone's got for us on next week's show. But now we're going to move into the meat of the show, that is the Super League match reviews. Super League round 3, and we start as we almost always do on a Thursday night, and it was Leeds versus Catalans. It was 4-4 at half time. It finished 10-4 to the visiting Catalans Dragons. 10,655 were there in. What I have to say is Thursday was shit weather again. It was a reminder of the weekend before rather than the rest of the weekend to come. Jack Smith got the whistle in this one, his first Super League game of the season in charge so far. In terms of the team stats, we have incomplete stats as Bodine Thompson doesn't exist. Just like Greg Eden doesn't exist anymore at Castleford, Bodine Thompson doesn't exist when it comes to stats. But from the numbers we have got, even with a man down on stats, Leeds actually made more meters than Catalan. So it's interesting that the result went the way against the ground gained. Do you want to take us through the individual stat notables?
Yep, so for Catalan, Ben Garcia had 51 tackles, 13 of which were for marker, and 110 metres. He went both ways, as we say.
Yeah.
Tom Davies, 145 metres, pretty consistent as always. Ben Julien with 45 tackles and 14 for marker, another good defensive effort. And another one, Mike McMeekin with 45 tackles as well, just 12 for marker, so slacking there.
Yeah.
For Leeds, Cameron Smith. There's a lot of defensive notes in these numbers. 47 tackles, 15 from marker, tells us something about the game, I think. Mikolaj Lechki with 41 tackles, but he did make 130 metres going forward. Also going forward, Liam Tyndall had 123 metres, and Tom Briscoe with 6 tackle busts and 114 metres.
Into the fan views, at MikeWebb58 said, was looking forward to this, but not a good watch. Surely both teams have a lot of improvement in them. In the meantime, keep up the good work, Agent Long. I think not a good
Alan
watch
Walker
sums this one up as best as anyone can do.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad I didn't see most of this. Alan Walker says, more midweek, midwinter madness. And this one finished at nearly midnight. Well, in some places. Wet and windy night, and giving the ball away doesn't help. The middles, Chan, Big Sam, Desire and Minikin played well. and didn't miss the slackers. Bash, 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 bash. The